Mr. Huntington, would you like to make your way up here, please, sir? The man in the blue shirt, he's a geophysicist. He is an avid explorer. An impending pandemic, a coup d'etat brought him back from the wilds of Canada and Myanmar to the side of Perth, where he held a bit of a coup, did one not? Ousted the guys at Redbank Copper and has rebirthed it. Today, we are going to hear the story of this next Tier 1 global copper project. Would you please put your hands together and welcome Technical Director Michael Huntington from Redbank Copper.
Thank you very much, everyone. As Chrissy said, judges often make their decisions on what they've had for lunch, so I hope you had a good lunch. Last year, I told two stories at this conference, one that started 1,730 million years ago, which is the age of the rocks in the area that Redbank is exploring in the far eastern portion of the Northern Territory. And the second story I told last year is when new management started in August 2019, nearly 3 years ago now. Today, I want to bring you up to date on what Redbank has done since I last spoke here in May last year. The Redbank project sits between two world-class zinc deposits. The McArthur River mine on the far western boundary, which was discovered in 1955, and a lot of you will know it as HYC. Here's your chance. And the other is a deposit called Century, discovered by CRA in 1989. The deposit at McArthur River is in rocks with ages of 1,640 million years, and at Century at 1,595 million years ago. So the rocks we're looking at are at least 90 million years older than the rocks of those two zinc deposits. We've got a very large tenement package. In August 2019, Redbank's tenement package was approximately 300 to 400 square kilometres. We now have a tenement package of around 14,000 square kilometres. So we've pegged everything from the Northern Territory, Queensland border, west essentially up to the farm gate at the McArthur River mine. What we now have is rocks across a 250 kilometre area of the McArthur Basin from east to west. Part of the reason why Redbank pegged this ground was work that Geoscience Australia started in 2016 as part of a program called Exploring for the Future. This was a program where the federal government provided $100 million to Geoscience Australia to identify areas in Australia that had the potential to host the next Tier 1 base metal deposits. They identified the area between McArthur River and Mount Isa. Well, that's not unusual, but it turned out that the ground between the Redbank project, which is close to the Northern Territory Queensland border, and the McArthur River mine was open. So we pegged it all. We didn't just peg it based on that. We had previously done a lot of work understanding work that the Northern Territory Geo Survey had completed over the last 30 years. If we go back to 1992, there was a mirror project. So this was research-based work called P384. That project was highlighting the exploration potential between Redbank and the McArthur River mine. So the work that we're doing is not new. This area has been known about for a long time. What I'm going to take you through today is new work that we've done using new technology. Not super new technology that's 6 or 12 months old, but technology that's only been around for the last 5 or 10 years. We've collected all that data in the last 12 months and we're ready to drill. We have a drill rig that's going to be mobilising to site within the next 4 weeks. So the next time you hear from Redbank, the next news we're going to be providing is news that we get from the end of the drill rig. How are we doing this with such a small market cap company? Our market cap is around $22 million. We've got $5 million in the bank and we've got a ginormous area that even a large company would have a hard time exploring with a team much bigger than what we have. What we've done is we've harvested everything, every piece of data we can get a hold of. With GIS systems, with the ability to capture data, we've collected everything that the oil and gas industry has been able to produce in this basin in the last 50 years. We've looked at seismic data. We've looked at oil well data. We've even gone out into the Timor Sea and looked at ocean floor bathymetry. So that's the topography of the Timor Sea. And what we've gained from that is an understanding that there are more structures in our part of the MacArthur Basin than you can actually see on the landmass. So we've interpreted these structures, and in this scene you can see that they're north-northeast structures. These are key structures in much older Archean rocks. We believe that the rocks at the basement of this basin have kept cracking little by little and have put major structures, north-northeast structures, through this basin. This is going to be key to future exploration. What we're looking for is areas of weakness in the basin where fluids can ascend from deep in the basin up into sediment horizons closer to the surface, where copper in fluid that ascends on high angle steep structures can emplace in receptive host sediments. And for the next few minutes I'm going to take you through how we're going to hunt for these type of copper systems. Again, let me just set the perspective. Here's the Century Mine to the east and the MacArthur Mine in the west. Between those two mines, the only copper grade of economic value is at Redbank, but it's all hosted in breccia pipes, vertical pipes. What you see there is two of the deposits, the Sandy Flat deposit, which was partially mined back in the early 90s, and the Bluff deposit. Each of these deposits contains roughly 30,000 tonnes of contained copper each. That's actually very small in the scheme of things, but what we believe is that this is an indication that the copper-bearing fluid that has come up into these breccia pipes is essentially the effluent or the outflow of a big mineralizing system of fluid that's coming up from depth. What we're trying to do is to find not vertical-oriented systems, but horizontal-oriented systems in a particular sediment strata. How do we go about doing that? Rather than immediately try and chase a postage stamp size target, we want to understand what we're dealing with these rocks. It turns out that all the rocks are flat-lying. They dip gently to the north-northwest at about 10 degrees. So what we did is we collected MT, magnetotelluric data, and some of the data we collected at 1 kilometre spacing over a distance of about 100 kilometres, and we collected a smaller line through the deposits at 200 metre spacing. So we collected soundings at 200 metre spacings. What that shows us is that we have layer cake stratigraphy. However, we have major vertical breaks there that we're interpreting to be huge vertical structures that tap deep into the basin. Just let me go through the background quickly, because one of the insights to get from this is that a lot of work has been done in the past with some artisanal small-scale mining, and we've completed a lot of work, but what hasn't happened in this area is there's been hardly any drilling outside of the breccia pipes. CRA has been there in the mid-90s after they found Century in '89. Redbank was there from earlier in the 2000s. And you'd think, why hasn't Redbank raised lots of money and gone and explored out there? Well, there are easier pickings for the shareholders that are mainly West Australian shareholders in the West Australian goldfields with other companies. Our top 20 shareholders are also top 20 shareholders of numerous other companies in Western Australia. So we're right at a point in time where we've collected modern data, we've compared it with historic data, and we have a drill rig ready to go. I just want to briefly touch on what the company looks like corporately. We recently completed a $4 million capital raising with Argonaut. We have just over 630 million shares on issue with a market cap of just over $20 million. If you look at the price chart there, from August 2019, when we put the company into suspension, it looks like the company didn't have a heartbeat. It took us till September 2020 to come back on the ASX, and our share price has gone up. And since I spoke here last year, the share price has gone down, although having collected a large amount of data, having an exploration camp up at site, flown airborne EM, and collected a lot of ground geophysical IP data. So we're ready to go for this field season for a number of drilling campaigns. We have the money to do it for the next 4 or 5 months. We've rejuvenated our board, not rejuvenated it with young people. Our chairman is Tony Kiernan. Earlier this year, we appointed Hugh Thomas. Hugh's got a background as a merchant banker. He was the resource head in Asia of JP Morgan. Bruce Hooper will be known to many of you as a geologist. Bruce and I worked together in GeoPico many years ago. And Dale Henderson, who works at Pilbara Minerals. Mike Cowan, who's at our booth, is our exploration manager. I act as a consultant. I have expertise in sediment-hosted copper systems. Alan Ronk has been field mapping for us for the last 3 field seasons. Alan worked for Mark Creasy for over 20 years. And we've also got John Beeson, who's a consultant. John worked in Zambia for First Quantum. He has a lot of experience exploring for these kind of deposits. What have we done? We've collected the data. We've undertaken ground-induced polarization surveys. You saw the MT, magnetotelluric. We've mapped the geology, and we've completed a small drilling survey. We've drilled a stratigraphic hole so that we could understand more about the geology before we get stuck into drilling targets we have this year. This just shows a timeline of what we completed. The most important is the green line. We will be drilling within 4 to 6 weeks. We're ready to drill. The rig's currently drilling for another client at the moment in the Northern Territory. So we expect to be mobilising to site with all our geologists in the next 3 weeks. The breccia pipes. One of the key features of these breccia pipes is, first of all, what you have is a zone of overpressure where the rocks get cracked. After they've been cracked, they create spaces in between what geologists call clasts. What's happened is copper-rich fluid has invaded the spaces in between those clasts in what we call the matrix. So these breccias have 2 features to them, clasts and matrix. There is no mineralisation, there's no copper mineralisation in the clasts. The copper mineralisation is all in the matrix. Now, when you take a 1 metre interval of this rock and you assay it, you get assays from somewhere between 1% and 5% copper. But really what you're doing is you're only seeing the copper in 20% of the rock that you're assaying. What that means is that the fluid that's come into those spaces between the clasts contains high-grade copper. What we did in July last year is we arranged to fly an airborne EM survey, and those breccia pipes are along an area there. There's no EM anomaly associated with those breccia pipes, but there is a large EM anomaly 5 kilometres to the east of those breccia pipes. When we process that data, what we find is that that conductor aligns 1-to-1 with this lower Wollongong unit, a sediment. What we know about that sediment is that where it daylights, now remember these rocks are dipping at 10 degrees to the north-northeast, so they're dipping this way. Where that geological horizon, the Wollongong daylights, it has copper. What we're finding is this VTEM conductor is here. When we invert that airborne EM data, it resolves to the Wollongong at approximately 200 metres depth. That is our primary drill targets there. This is what it looks like in more detail. You can see there is a drill hole that's been put in there by a previous explorer. That is mineralised. This is the trend that we believe is the conduit, a deep structure that is transmitting the copper-bearing fluid from depth into the breccia pipes, and we hope is hydraulically connected with the Wallagrang formation. So this is a very, very hot target to be drilling this year. This is what it looks like in pseudo 3D. We've actually run ground geophysics over it, dipole induced polarization. What that's provided is chargeability anomalies. So chargeability anomalies are related to disseminated sulfides. We've actually got a very good second technique to target our drill holes. What I want to leave you with is a basic image on the amount of soil sampling that we've collected this year. We've collected over 4,000 samples last year. The assays were received earlier this year. We're still analysing them. We have all the features of a copper system at depth from what we see in the surface soil sampling. So I look forward to reporting to you further in the next few months after we've finished our first drill program in the next month or two. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Redbank and Michael Huntington. Next up on stage is Andy Tudor, Managing Director of Nexus Minerals Ltd. Now, Nexus is a junior gold explorer that's recently announced its Crusader Templar gold discovery within the company's broader Walbrook gold project, which is in the eastern goldfields of Western Australia. Would you please make Managing Director Andy Tudor very welcome?
Thanks very much. I'm here today to run through the Nexus Minerals story and hopefully update everybody on where we're at. And we obviously made some significant advancements over where we were last year, all of them positive. So as a corporate overview there, and I think, you know, a takeaway of the company at the moment is it's in a sort of very healthy state. Just under 300 million shares out there. Mid-30s as a share price, so market cap around that $100 million. So you're big enough, you can really got room to move, but you're not too small that it's difficult to get investment and get the community interested in the size of project you're looking for. The market cap, around 100 million, 17 million cash, and we talk a few times about active exploration and what you're doing with your money. At the moment, you know, if we aren't the most active explorer here at the conference, we're very close to it, with a current spend of, you know, well north of $3.5 million a month and 5 drill rigs going full bore at our West Australian project, which I'll talk to in a second. A share price, I was talking to a few investors here this morning that spoke to me last year in about the that April, May, June timeline. Bought into Nexus shares, and you know, they're currently having a sort of a triple bagger, and I said to them, well, hopefully I'll see you next year and we can make it a tenfold. So we'll see how we go. Wealth of experience in board and management there, a lot of years experience all in from exploration right the way through to corporate guidance, management and equity market experience. So a good team there to be involved in the Nexus Minerals project and the story. Two main project areas talking to today. In Western Australia, you know, we unashamedly say we're chasing these large-scale gold deposits. You know, we've targeted and found ground that is under or completely unexplored, and using all the exploration methodology with gained in a lot of years' experience to try and bring these things forward. And to date, we're having some really good exploration success. And we brought the Bethanga porphyry copper gold project on the books in the last 12 months as well. I've spent a lot of years in the Asia Pacific chasing porphyry coppers, and this is certainly a project worthy of again very early stages, but it's a good project, and we're just starting to get our teeth into that at the moment. So I'll start with our Eastern Goldfields project. It's called Walbrook, and we're roughly 140 kilometres northeast of Kalgoorlie. We're parked in between Northern Star's Karasu Dam operation at Karari and their porphyry mining centre itself. So they're open pit mining at Porphyry at the moment. They're about to go underground there. And the haul road, they truck it right the way down through the middle of Nexus tenure down to their mill 35 k's to the south. We've got an excellent relationship with Northern Star, and we utilise their haul roads and other facilities in the district as well. And it's a large tenement holding. We sort of brought together 3 or 4 packages from multiple other explorers that had the tenure prior to us. And we've brought together certainly some good tenements, and the results are starting to come. So something that we're finding is more and more important these days as well is the central component there, which is what I'll be concentrating and talking about today. It's roughly 8 kilometres there between the Walbrook mine and the Porphyry mine, and they're on granted MLs. So, you know, today you have to apply for an exploration tenement. Can take you anything up to 2 to 3 years to get that. Go out drilling, find something, convert it to a mining tenement. You have a really long lead time. So the fact that these are granted M's means that any sort of resource that is discovered can be mined within 3 to 6 months. You're simply putting in your application to the mines department, but you're really just guiding them that this is how you're going to do it with a set of guidelines. As long as you just follow those, you can be up and mining. So the value of a granted M these days over other tenure is particularly significant, and that's where we're concentrating our exploration. The geology, structural setting is what we're looking for potential for hosting gold mineralisation. Unexplored to underexplored, very much significantly the case, and the right rocks. So these are really important. We're after these proximal and internal porphyry intrusions inside the host rocks, and that's what we're finding up and through the region there from Crusader to branches where we've been exploring at the moment. So whilst there's a lot of numbers there, and I get that, I mean, what's important is that the 5 of the drill rigs that we've got at the moment, 3 RC and 2 Diamond, continue to work through this 1.6 kilometre strike, and recent drilling has just combined the two and sort of linked essentially the whole lot together. And the continuity is something that's certainly stunning about the project to date, both in a plan and a cross-sectional view. The continuity is something that's particularly important, and you need that in the early days as you're trying to build up a resource and build something of size. You need to have that strike extent on your side, and that's certainly the case at the moment. We're seeing the mineralisation hosted in these quartz porphyry intrusives. So essentially it's these red rocks, and we've also done some preliminary metallurgical test work, and it's all come back pretty positive to date with 98% oxide, just under 98 fresh. So very, very high. It's working well. Fantastic numbers there. Won't bore you with them, but 29 at 4, 10 at 4. You know, that's all great in isolation, but it's the fact that as you pull together the whole thing rather than a few in isolation that it becomes important. What we've done here is we've taken, instead of just picking one cross section, which is obviously gives you a line in space, this takes 800 metres of drill results and concertinas them all onto the one section. And you need this. You can't control this or plan this. This is very much up to the geological gods whether this works for you or not, and we're certainly very fortunate that it does. So what you need to see is you need to have broader, always, you'd like it higher grade, but you tend to have lower grade, broad mineralisation in your shallower parts of your deposit. So we've got our supergene there where you've got 5 at 4 within 43 at 1.2, 7 at 3 within 20 at 1.27. So that's fantastic, and you need that in that sort of top 70, 80 metres where you've got your oxide in material there. Then you need to transition through around that 100 metre mark where we transition from oxide into fresh material, and that's in that zone there. And then you'd like to see the grade improving. It tends to obviously narrow up, and that's also what we see here. Remember, this is every drill hole across the whole 600 metres, this picture evolves. Then when you go into potentially your deeper, your underground grades and numbers, you need it certainly to be the higher grade and shallower again. 4 at 16 within 3 at 7, 7 at 4 within 12 at 2. So that, if you're looking at teaching a geology student at a university, what would you like your exploration project to be developing into? That's the kind of picture you'd like to see, and it's certainly classic Eastern Goldfields. So very happy to date. The long section then, really all we're trying to show there is as we build up more and more drilling, the picture remains the same. The grade is good. It's over the full 1.6 kilometres. We're starting to link this Crusader and Templar zone together. and it's very sparse in the drilling. So you can imagine with 5 drill rigs pumping here, it's still taking us time to build up this story. And as you start to see there, as we start to build more and more drilling information, we start to get a good picture of some plunges and some other parts to the internal geometry of the deposit. So drilling will continue, and that's certainly where we're going to be at for the next 6 months. Regionally there, we spoke about Crusader Templar, and what we're finding is that we've got this gravity low corridor, and then we want a mag low within a mag high. And this is almost like a recipe. This is what we're doing. Where do we see these? What can we do to keep looking for them? The exploration underway then is to complete the whole area in a gravity survey and start to build a picture around these regional projects and then start to drill them. To date, we've drilled Solomon, which we just highlighted there in red, just under 4,000 meters. Results are pending on that one. And we've just done some follow-up work to Branches, which we drilled a couple of years ago. And we certainly saw some good numbers up there. And now we know what we know in regards to the geophysics and work our way back to our drill numbers. It's all starting to make some sense. And this is what we're trying to do, is build up this picture, get it to make some sense, and then literally have the ingredients for how we keep exploring. And what we're certainly seeing there is the development of a genuine mine camp. Once we can start getting some numbers in some of these regional projects, then it'll really start to sort of build the prospectivity of it as a genuine gold camp district. So the Walbrook region itself and the project, 50 kilometres of strike there. We're obviously building up all the story over the historical data. We're finding the geophysics systems at work, following it up with the drilling, and the results are starting to come. So it's certainly Nexus Minerals corridor of riches, and these are the right rocks. Staying on the concept of the right rocks, the Bathanga Porphyry Copper in Victoria is a project which we've brought on in the last 12 months. And today, at the moment, it's very early stage. You need to be in the same rocks and the same geological host rocks as Australia's premier terrain. You need to be there with Cadia, Ridgeway, North Parks, all the major porphyry copper in Australia are in that belt. You need to be in those right rocks, and that's where the Bathanga project is. We're out there at the moment soil sampling. We continued working through there right through COVID and completed some regional work. Looked interesting, and the porphyry fertility assessment continues. Nexus had it as an option for 9 months. We've now taken it on board into the company, and we own it 100%. And we're on the ground now doing detailed soils, detailed ground mag will follow, and then ultimately we'll pull the whole lot together in the next few months. A fairly hectic exploration program, but as I said before, with exploration spend of $3.5 million a month, we're expecting to see that 20,000 meters of RC and the same number at Templar. We'll bring that Crusader Templar together. 2 diamond rigs pumping 24/7 out there as well. We'll start bringing that together. We've got the Solomon and Branches regional prospects, which we'll see results for in the next few weeks. And the porphyry fertility assessment is continuing at Bathanga. So why Nexus? As a summary, in Western Australia, highly prospective strategic land holding, significant discovery made at Crusader Templar in 2021. Our major drill program is underway with successful drill results coming on a regular basis, and obviously a lot of news flow in this next coming 6 months. When I say active gold explorer, we've explained it, and that's certainly we mean it. A new project, Bathanga Porphyry Copper, is coming on and starting to look very interesting, and the fertility assessment is well underway. So quality projects, the right rocks, a professional and experienced management team, and we're well funded to undertake our exploration activities. Thank you very much.
Andy Tudor, thank you very much, Andy Tudor and Nexus. Joining us next at the microphone, copper and gold explorer Hammer Metals, who are well placed to capitalise on the resurgent interest in the copper potential of the Mount Isa region, with a resource totalling in excess of 400,000 tonnes. Pretty happy about that, aren't you?
It's a start.
Ecstatic. And this ecstatic gentleman who's joining us up on stage is the MD of the company. His name is Dan Thomas, and he's going to provide an insight into the opportunities that may present themselves to you with Hammer. Please make him welcome.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Christina. Thanks to Stuart, Jackson, the RIU team here. It's a pleasure to be in front of everyone in Sydney again. We've been busy over the past 12 months, and for anyone new to the story, I'd like to walk you through Hammer Metals and where we sit as a company. We're exploring two of the world's great mineral provinces in the Yandal Belt in Western Australia, and more importantly for copper and gold in the Mount Isa province, one of the world's largest great base metal provinces. In terms of our portfolio there, we've spent a decade building a quality portfolio that includes copper and gold assets, some 5 JORC resources, in excess of 400,000 tonnes of copper equivalent metal already defined there. We're making recent copper discoveries in Queensland, and importantly within a team that has made world-class discoveries previously and added value for shareholders along that journey. We're looking forward to the coming 12 months, of which we're fully funded for our projects. In terms of the company, current market capitalisation of $82 million with $6.4 million in the Treasury at 31 March. Our top 20 shareholders account for over 50% of our register, and importantly, our directors hold 13% in the company. So they're technically aligned, they're financially aligned, and a lot of our shareholders have previously participated and worked with the board and management team in other investments and have continued to invest along that journey. You'll see over the 12-month period there, we've traded in a range between 4 and 11 cents. We've had some recent good news which explains the uptick, and I'd like to say the Mount Isa region is hotting up in terms of copper interest amongst many players. In terms of Mount Isa and where we are literally surrounded by world-class Tier 1 deposits. Mount Isa, George Fisher, Cannington, these names are familiar through many, many decades of exploration and development in Australia. What I think is important for investors to understand is in more recent times, there have been new money coming into this region. So Fetch Metals, located out to our east, recently acquired the old projects from the White Range Copper Project for in excess of $50 million. Comet Resources acquired Mount Margaret for circa $50 million. Yesterday, Aeris last week, they announced the transaction for the Round Oak assets at Mount Colin, which sit on neighbouring tenement holders. Carnaby have raised money recently on the back of their Nil Desperandum discovery, with Oz Minerals now sitting on the register. So this is one of Australia's hottest copper exploration provinces as we head into a world short of copper supply and future projects. And I think where we sit as a company with some 400,000 tonnes of copper equivalent metal within the portfolio, I think we're well positioned to capitalise on that. Our strategy is based on exploration, and it is around finding enough copper here to have our own standalone development scenario, and that is what we're actively exploring at the moment. Additionally to that, we still have a view that this region holds the potential for a standalone world-class Tier 1, Tier 2 type discovery. So we're active on both of those fronts, looking to unearth a big discovery at the same time advancing what we already have. We've had recent extensions to our Kelman deposit, as well as some exploration success at the likes of Ajax, Lakeview. We've got some really exciting targets that we're currently drilling at the moment, and I'm looking forward to sharing some information on that in the near future. We have a joint venture with Sumitomo Metal Mining Oceania over approximately 300 square kilometres of tenure there. And as I said before, we've built a dominant position here. It's taken us a decade, predicated on the fact we're focused on 2 big fault structures here, which we believe have been lightly explored through history. I had hoped to share our most recent exploration results with you at this conference. Unfortunately, the laboratory couldn't meet the timeline. We have some 3,000 metres of RC drilling backlog within the laboratory at the moment. I expect those results to be around in the next 7 to 10 days. We're currently drilling a high impact EM conductor at our Ajax East prospect, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So whilst I don't have immediate news to share with you today, I thought it was really important to look at some of the assets in our portfolio and something that we haven't spoken a lot about in detail. Our Kelman deposit is our cornerstone asset that accounts for nearly 80 to 90% of our metal. Has an in-ground valuation in excess of $6 billion Australian of metal inventory there already. And according to S&P Global's list of assets with greater than 1 million tonnes of ore, it's the world's 3rd highest grade molybdenum project that sits undeveloped today. Why is that important? Well, molybdenum today is trading at $46,000 per tonne. So when you consider what the equivalent value in that metal is, molybdenum in this particular project is quite encouraging. Our recent work around Kelman, we hadn't drilled it for 5 years. We drilled it recently in December last year. We reported some results out of there, and we think there's a potential to add tonnes to the existing resource there. So not only is it open at depth, where you can see that really nice shiny chalcopyrite, 20% plus copper has come from. It's also open to the north, close to surface, shallow, broad zones of mineralisation. I think there's some easy wins to be had there in the coming 6-month period. In terms of those results, you'll notice there are the copper equivalent numbers reported. It's really important, as I said, molybdenum trading at near record highs. The equivalents at shallow depths make this, I think, quite interesting and quite persuasive to think about moving forward. As I said, it remains open to the south and also to the north. When you have a look at our drilling and what we've recently done, you'll see the 4 holes highlighted on the screen there, the blue dots to the north. When we've drilled them, we've identified zones of mineralisation that exist to the south that simply hadn't been drilled to the north. And that's the type of easy exploration success that we've been having at Kelman, and we'll look to do so in the coming drilling programs. In terms of what we have there, the current copper market at 9,600 per tonne, and as I mentioned, the high molybdenum prices, we really have a potential without doing any more drilling here to re-examine the potential of the Kelman deposit through looking at some selective mining scenarios, updating obviously current metal prices along with the current cost structures, but also potential to really optimise this project through the use of ore sorting and really cut down what's required to, from a cost perspective in processing that ore. Where we sat before, we sat between Mount Isa and Cloncurry, so bitumised highway 30 kilometres away from this particular region. Power-related infrastructure there, obviously a copper smelter in Mount Isa. These are the types of projects, as the world looks for new copper supply, that can potentially fill that gap. Now, this is the exciting part and what I think a lot of our investors are really interested and in tune with at the moment. It's our exploration strategy here and where we're really focused on. I mentioned that highway between Mount Isa and Cloncurry running through the northern part of our tenement. Kelman sits down to the south down here. It's a 20-kilometre radius you can see here. In terms of our projects and our other JORC resources, Elaine to the north, Jubilee, which we own 51% of, and the Overlander deposit down here to the south. The first part of our strategy in building out sort of a development scenario is really focusing on this northern corridor. You can see our joint venture with Sumitomo Metal Mining in the burnt orange section. The lighter orange colours are 100% Hammer owned, and we're having success right the way through this region. And what is that success? Well, what originally drew us here was our success in that joint venture last year at a prospect called Trafalgar. You can see here a really interesting magnetic trend running to the north and the sort of border of the JVs here, running all the way through to our resources up around Elaine and also Jubilee. This whole trend, we think, is highly prospective for further mineralisation that has really been lightly explored. Prior to our work at Trafalgar, this whole trend here, which is about 4.5 kilometres from Trafalgar or Victory at the south through to the Springs, had 2 drill holes into it for 130 metres of total RC drilling. When you have a look at this trend, that story is repeated all the way through here, and it's prospects around Lakeview and Ajax where we're starting to have some success. We've successfully identified EM conductors and some good-looking mineralisation. In terms of that mineralisation, our first hole into Ajax, 11 metres at 5% plus 2.5 grams per tonne of gold from only 24 metres. What's really significant about this is the EM conductor that we identified 350 metres away from that original drill hole at Ajax. You can see this large plate here measuring 500 metres by 500 metres. Width unknown, not a lot of graphite in the region, a really strong EM conductor, 3,000 Siemens. It's our view that this is likely to represent some sort of sulfide body here, either pyrrhotite or hopefully some chalcopyrite, which we've seen in this original hole. We've followed up nearby at Ajax. I mentioned that 3,000 metres of RC drilling. There's about 1,000 metres here across 6 holes. We're still waiting for the results from these, but a really lightly explored trend with, I think, a lot of potential. In terms of what you're looking at, this is some old drilling that was done nearby by CRA in the 90s, so 300-metre holes. At the time, they weren't aware of the depth of this EM target. They saw some pyrrhotite in the hole here, along with some chalcopyrite, so 10 metres at 0.14% copper, 14 at 0.3% copper. This zone remains untested. We're putting a diamond hole into that as we speak, and I expect to have some news out from that particular target over the next week or so. And this is a picture of the trend, or a drone shot of the trend, as you can see here at Ajax. Pretty flat countryside. As I said, not a lot of work done through here. This is typical of our tenement portfolio in the Mount Isa region, amenable to exploration. Landholders that are happy for you to do work through here, and a really positive relationship with the Indigenous community in the area too. So this is our focus, and this is part of that sort of broader trend that we've got of mineralisation through here. And we're looking to do a lot more work here in the near future. Mention those big systems, those broad targets, and what we're aiming for. A big IOCG target at Overlander. Again, following our neighbours' success in drilling an IP system, we refocused our attention to the Overlander deposit, where we had already defined a large IP anomaly here, sitting below our resource here, and sat here for the best part of 5 years untested. A lot of copper through this region. This unit out here is a rhyolite unit that also contains lower grade mineralisation. But sitting below both sets of mineralisation was a large IP anomaly. And as we've seen through the success of drilling IP anomalies, we've drilled a target through this area in the past 3 months. And again, as part of our news flow coming up as those assays start to get returned from the laboratory. This is a big system, lots of copper in this region. The source of it's still unknown and lightly explored for the amount of copper through here. So again, this is another great target and an example of the type of targets that Hammer's continuing to test through our time in Mount Isa. Touch a little bit on our joint venture with Sumitomo Metal Mining. They're earning a 60% interest by expending $6 million over a 5-year period. We've really focused to this stage along that Trafalgar trend in the mineralisation. I recently completed some initial IP surveys through the area, and you can see the correlation here between the good mineralisation that's been intercepted and the IP. So we see IP as being an effective tool to define mineralisation, and we'll be embarking on more IP surveys in May. We've recently completed diamond drill holes at prospects at Mount Phelp and also within the Trafalgar deposit. So again, some more news flow for our shareholders to look forward to. What's coming up? We're really busy. We've got EM crews on site. We've got an IP crew rolling up to site soon. We've had soil surveys. We've had a drill rig since December. So that's some 5 months now, nearly 6 months of a drill rig on site. We continue to be aggressive with our programs and continue to look to add copper to the inventory that already sits there. We've got new drilling planned at Kelman, so hopefully an extension to that resource, whilst we also look to test some of the other systems that we're getting some positive responses from EM and IP. The joint venture there, we've detailed all of this news in previous announcements. So again, a very active period coming up in the joint venture as we look to drill further meters. I've really run out of time to talk about our West Australian projects. We have some 300 kilometres of tenure, again surrounded by world-class mineral gold deposits here. We continue to do work in this region. We've got some 4,000 soil samples in the laboratory at the moment, and we'll be looking to set up some new targets here, as well as drilling out some existing gold hits that we've had where we think we can have some success in defining small JORC gold resources. So it's a really active time coming up in the company, really busy in Mount Isa and Queensland. Lots of drilling happening, lots of results to be delivered, and hopefully some success. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Dan. We'll keep an eye out for those results. 7 days, you say. Seven, maybe 10. You just need to talk to the people down at the coffee stand and get a mobile lab out there. Set that up. Kaiser Reef is our next explorer to take to the stage here for 2022. Actually, you're not just an explorer, are you? No, you are a producer of high quality, high grade gold with a clear focus on gold within the Lachlan Fold Belt, which spans, of course, across the border through New South Wales into Victoria. As we've heard, it's been a major gold producing region for a number of years, since the mid-1800s. Is there still enough upside for us to invest? That is the question. Well, this man thinks there is. So would you please make welcome to the stage Kaiser Reef MD, Mr. Jonathan Downs.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I'm very excited to sit here. We've actually had some great news very recently with the company. We're starting to really kick some goals, and we are unusually a gold producer. We're in fact the only ASX listed gold producer operating in Victoria at the moment. So, it's pretty exciting to be operating high-grade gold production there. There's a lot of great gold mining going on, and typically very high grade, and in fact extremely profitable in some cases. Now, while I say we are Victorian gold focused, we do have some projects in New South Wales as well on the Lachlan Fold trend, and About a little over a year ago, we transitioned into becoming a gold explorer and producer in Victoria, which is now the company's main focus. All the assets we own 100% and collectively produced over 2.5 million ounces of extremely high-grade gold. So, you know, gold is where you find it, and certainly there's been a lot of gold produced from the leases that we hold. We're in gold production right now, and we have got some very talented and very experienced operations crew to support the company going forward. The company's market capitalization is 28 million, giving us an enterprise value sub 20 million. So I guess there's some opportunity for upside. I'll just move on. I'll start off with the exploration upside within Kaiser. We hold 100% title to the historic Molten goldfield. Now, the Molten goldfield sits in between Ballarat and Bendigo on the fabled Bendigo block that's been the host of the bulk of Victoria's 79 million ounces of production. The Molten goldfield has produced over 2 million ounces of gold. 1.7 million ounces of those was from within our leases at 28 grams a tonne, and that's non-alluvial gold. In fact, Molten produced more gold than Ballarat did from underground sources. So it's an area that really has fallen off the radar in recent times, and I'm excited to also mention that it's on a granted mining license and it's an advanced project. It's got a decline running right through the middle of it. It's got power, ventilation, and is actually ready for production. It also hosts the Nuggety gold mine, possibly Australia's highest grade gold mine, 300,000 ounces of historic production at 187 grams a tonne. That's pretty extraordinary, and I'll talk a little bit about the unusual context of that deposit. The A1 mine has been in production since 1861, and may be Australia's highest grade current producing gold mine. We produced 14 grams a tonne recovered in the last quarter, and it has some fantastic exploration upside, and I'll try and explain why we think the grade's going to keep rising. The third asset that we own is the Molten processing plant. It's a modern CIP plant that we're in the process of upgrading certain aspects of, and it's operating very well, giving us better than typically 95% recovery. So our strategy right now is currently drilling. Yesterday, we put out a drill result. Our first drill hole at A1 returned 4.6 meters at 135 grams a tonne gold. That's a 600 gram meter intercept, and pretty spectacular in anyone's language. That's in a sort of a near mining target area for us too. So we're looking very much forward to opening that up. Union Hill at Molten is our primary exploration target underground because of the nature of the already developed decline. And we're also talking to parties about potential toll treatment and joint ventures on some of the other assets. So I'll launch into Molten to kick off because it really is just bloody exciting. There have been drill results up to 205 grams a tonne that have had very little follow-up. Its production history is extraordinary, you know, nearly an ounce a tonne. And as I said, it's extremely advanced. It would take very little for us to get back into production there from a permitting perspective. There's power, there's water, there's that decline. So a lot of money has been expended in the past. And this is a location plan showing you where we sit, pretty much smack in between Bendigo, Ballarat, and there's Fosterville, and some of the historic production numbers from those goldfields. I think this is quite interesting, but the Fosterville mine had only produced 290-odd thousand ounces up until 2003. It really is quite a modern discovery that to become a high-grade producer that it is today. And it speaks of a few things. Firstly, the exploration opportunity in the Victorian goldfields, Secondly, the fact that Fosterville is so profitable, it has opened up many people's eyes to what the potential is to produce from narrow vein, high-grade gold mines. We've been very actively drilling at Molten, and we've actually just concluded the exploration drilling, phase 1, with some fantastic results, several sort of 1 ounce plus hits. And that data is now in the with independent engineering group, Mining One, who are doing a resource estimate. So we hope to have a resource out at Molten in the not too distant future. And I'll try and show you where, if that laser beam's pointing there, in that area there, where the decline goes right through. There's a bit of historic development, and we think there's a strong potential for a resource. There was a historic resource, and it was pretty impressive. So we're hoping to see what our recent drilling has done to potentially reinstate that and bring that up into a JORC 2012. On this image here also, just up here, is the Nuggety Reef I talked about. And what's really quite interesting about Nuggety Reef, apart from being incredibly high grade, is that it sits on a granodiorite contact. And Molten actually has got some unusual elements that were initially thought to be unique to Molten, called Moldenite creatively. And it's a gold bismuth complex. But what it really tells you is this is more of a traditional Bendigo, Ballarat, Fosterville style system, whereas this is indicating that perhaps there's been some metamorphosis and some mobilization. And it's yielded this incredible ore body with very, very little, nearly none, exploration down plunge on that contact zone. So that's a really high priority for us. That would be a massive win if we were able to prove that the Nuggety Reef mineralization does continue. And it's been a little problematic to drill this from surface recently. And I'll show you that, the reason for that in a second. This is a long section just showing, to get you the resolution for the grades, I haven't put in Nuggety here, but you can see some really lovely grades here. This ore body is open-ended. Any of the historic mines in Victoria, it's just a matter now for us to take it deeper. Okay, I'll just move on to the A1 mine now. As I said, operating since 1861, possibly one of, if not Australia's longest running gold mines. It's produced 500,000 ounces. It recovered 26 grams a tonne, so its head grade was probably closer to north of 30 grams. We've spent a lot of time and money improving production, debottlenecking, and making this thing more efficient. And as we're getting deeper, we're still amongst where historic miners have been working. And as we're getting deeper, we're finding more and more material has been left behind. And the old timers would have started to find it very difficult from a ventilation, water, and power perspective. Now we've got a modern decline. We've spent quite a lot of money and time and effort on power and ventilation upgrades, and that work is ongoing to give this mine a long future. But the numbers are starting to speak for themselves. We became operationally profitable in Q2, and in Q3 now we developed quite a healthy margin. As you can see, revenues of 7 million with our mining operating costs of 3.2 million. So we actually increased our cash balance whilst running 2 diamond drill rigs. So it's many a small junior company's dream is to be a self-funding exploration and miner. And I'm pleased to say that things are looking very good for us, and we certainly see some ongoing upside. So this is a profitable operation, and at $1,150 an ounce Australian as our operating cost, that's a very strong margin. So very pleased with that effort. Now, the future for this mine, as I said, we're finding that we're reaching the levels where the old timers couldn't go any, or were really struggling, and that grade is increasing. So we've got multiple reef systems for development in front of us now that have visible gold. So we're expecting to see a lot of high grade production going forward. And we threw a couple of deep diamond holes right down the diorite here just to make sure it continues, so that the future investment we're putting into the company was well founded. And I'm pleased to say that there's probably up to 10 years, I'm not allowed to make future looking statements, but it's a pretty healthy deep hole. We've just beaten that drill result yesterday, as I said, 4.6 meters at 135 grams a ton in our first drill hole. The diamond rig is back here and drilling out an area that has had very little historic drilling. It was a bit of a shadow of a large stope, so it couldn't be drilled through in the past. So to punch a hole into that area and get such a number is fantastic. And there's also lateral upside. There are other diorite plugs on strike and near us. And you can see some of the workings have been pushing out into these other ones. And there's very, very little drilling into any of these. So we will be putting our creative hats on and seeing what we get out the side and seeing if we can expand on that. So some pretty exciting upside on that front. And the processing plant, very well operated. Again, a very talented team running that. Interestingly, it's my opinion that you couldn't replace our mill for our market cap. You would be struggling to get another mill permitted in a long period of time in this area of Victoria. And we're surrounded by many operators. And despite making the money that I was talking about with that mine, we're only filling our own mill about 20%. So there's a huge amount of upside in the area, which is also why we're pursuing the Molten goldfield, which is only 2 kilometres away from our mill, to complete and fill our mill. But there's a lot of strategic value in this mill. And there's a photo of it. And I won't talk about the New South Wales gold exploration, as exciting as that is. Okay, thank you very much.
Better get you a better roundup next time, Jonathan. You say, what standard are they coming out to? What number?
Sorry?
Don't know where you are. We'll find out where you are and tell everyone where you're living. They can come and hear the rest of that exciting story. They can come out a bit later. I was looking at your little story up there and I was seeing some of the names. The Nuggety gold mine. That seemed quite hopeful. I like that. There was, what else was there? There was, I wrote some of them down. Daydreaming, New Chum. And if you come to a mining conference, that's where you find some of the most interesting names, aren't you? There was Bing Bong, I think, was one of the ports on one of your slides as well. But this next name is Dreadnought Resources. You know that's one of my favourites, don't you? Every time I see you guys present, I love that name, fearless, fearing nothing. It doesn't mean risk takers, it means well prepared. So today's little talk, I'm sure, is going to show that they're well prepared. What's the topic about? I should introduce this fellow first, shouldn't I? This is Dean Tuck. Dean is the Managing Director of Dreadnought, and they're about to embark on a drilling campaign which may deliver a number of nickel, copper and rare earth discoveries across its projects in WA. Would you please make Dean very welcome, everyone?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all who are here in person. It's great to be over here in Sydney, and thank you to everyone who's watching online currently over West. This has been an amazing session that's been put together. Some fantastic companies that have presented the last few rounds, all doing excellent exploration work. And it's a bit of an honor and a privilege to be up here amongst them. In particular, after us is Damien from Sunshine Gold as a shareholder, a big supporter of them. And I believe they are where Dreadnought was 2 years ago. So really excited to see what they have to say after this. But get this thing majigger to work and talk about Dreadnought and where we are at the moment. Dreadnought Resources, we've been around for about 3 years. We've had a lot of questions lately about what our end game is. And as a junior explorer, your end game ultimately is one, to be taken out by a major company after making a big discovery, or number two, taking some amazing discovery into production yourself. So your Sandfires of DeGrussa at one extreme, and your Serious Resources and your Spectrums at the other end of the extreme. and somewhere in between where we deliver significant shareholder value. That's what we are looking for as major shareholders ourselves. But most importantly, and where we are right now, we are an exploration company, and the greatest value creator in this industry is making the discovery and delivering that first resource. You look at Sandfire's DeGrussa from first intercept of discovery through first resource, second resource was an 11,000% shareholder return. DeGray, 2,500%. Chalice, 7,000, 9,000%. That is the greatest value creation in this industry, and my team and myself and Dreadnought, that is what we're focused on delivering. And once we make those discoveries and deliver those resources, which we believe we will start doing this year, then we will start looking at the next stage, which is crystallizing that value for our shareholders. We have leverage to a number of critical metals across the industry. We have gold assets. We have Metzke's gold resource coming out soon. Finally, we're finishing up drilling out at our Laura project, and we're about to embark on a few drilling programs for the next 6 to 9 months, which I think a lot of people are looking forward to. We have our nickel copper PGE drilling with First Quantum about to commence probably this week. Following that, once we have the last of our approvals in place, which are underway, we will commence our rare earth drilling at Mangaroon. And then following that, we'll migrate up to the Kimberley, where we currently have an auger program drilling our copper, gold, silver, and cobalt massive sulfide deposit, looking for friends to that. We've made a number of discoveries already. We have a few more coming up, and we'll be delivering resources on those. And we believe there's a lot of value and a lot of opportunity in what we're doing. On top of that, we're all shareholders. We're very well vested and aligned with everyone. Put 84% of our money in the ground, because that's the only way you make discovery. There's been a lot of active people presenting today, and fantastic to see that in the industry. So I'll start off with Mangaroon. This is where we're about to head up to. We have 2 projects within one here. We have over 4,500 square kilometers of ground. It's certainly a province scale play. I'm sure companies like IGO are sort of jealous of ground holdings like this, and especially the fact that we did a joint venture with First Quantum very early on the back of some of our outcropping high tenor 3-phase nickel sulfides we saw in the Money intrusion, 800 million year old 50 kilometer long dike with outcropping sulfides. With First Quantum over the past year, we have entered into a joint venture. $15 million they have to spend to get 51%. We are free carried through a decision to mine for them to get 70%. We control exploration up front. There's a very tight time frame on that, so there's no lagging behind like some big companies like to do. We are in the driver's seat and spending their money, which is a great spot to be in. Following that commences probably this week. And then the rest of the project, which we own 100%, right across from Hastings Yangibana mine that's in development at the moment, Australia's next rare earth producer. We are across the Lions River Fault. We have a number of ironstones identical to the Yangibana ironstones. The metallurgy's done. It's looking good. We're going to put the first drill holes into that and turn around, infill that, and deliver the first resource. And on top of that, we have the carbonatite sitting across the way, which might be the source of the whole thing, which would certainly change the economics in the future of this region. So about Mangaroon, so we've only had this project for about a year. The tenement's only granted at the end of last year. During that time period, we've mapped the entire 50 strike kilometers. We've done mag survey, soils, mapping, rock chipping. We identified a 1.2 kilometer long Gossamus horizon with a coincident DEM anomaly sitting underneath it, and a few other wildcat holes around the place. We have 9 holes, 1,200 meters going in, probably starting this week as soon as we wrap up Alara and get mobilized up there. That's going to be a very, very exciting project. See what if these bloody high tenor sulfides accumulate into a massive deposit near surface, or a net textured sulfide deposit, which still be high grade, and to also provide downhole EM platforms to explore for something at depth. So expect to see this kick off here in the next few days. Following that, we have the Mangaroon rare earths. This has been a very exciting development for Dreadnought. We only tripped over these things in April last year, and given the current market and appetite for rare earths and all the international activities that are going on, we took every spare minute of our time in the last 12 months to go out here and actually chase this and see what we can do. Like all rare earths, you can chip down a rabbit hole of metallurgy and all sorts of horrible nastiness. And thankfully, we have Hastings next door, who spent the last 10 years cracking the code, if you will, on how to make a nice clean monazite concentrate and a sellable product. And so we're able to jump on their shoulders of the giants next to us and do the exact same flotation test work. So taking outcrop samples, 60, 80 kilos on our backs, humping it out, and through flotation, simple flotation sheet, and produce the exact same high-grade monazite concentrate with high NdPr, using the exact same technique as Hastings next door. Considering we have a Luca who just got their $1 billion metal cracking fund from the federal government. We have Hastings into development next door, and we have Linus developing the monazite concentrate in Kalgoorlie. They have three very large and successful monazite facilities going to be into production in the next year or two, and we're going to be proving up what we believe to be the other half, hopefully of Yangibana, on the back of that and to feed into that market. So hopefully starting this month, as soon as we finish with the nickel drilling, we're at about 90 holes for 9,000 meters going into the ironstones. That's going to start off with wide space drilling at Yin, Y2, and Y3. We'll be able to assay these in the field for ourselves and log and see the ironstones, and we'll be able to design an infill program that we'll be able to do while we have the rig out there in the field. So we do the first pass drilling at Yin, Y2, Y3. We go over to the carbonatites. We put the first holes into those. That can be an absolute game changer for the region. We then take the rig back to Yin, Y2 or Y3, do the infill, and deliver the resource before the end of this year. Hastings did that from 2011 to 2015. Every drill program they delivered on each of their deposits. They did a drill program, they put out a resource. We have Lynn Windebar and other people who are involved in delivering those resources already on board with us. We have the metallurgist in place, the resource geologist in place. All I have to do is drill it, see what comes up, and put the resource out on it. And that program is commencing very shortly. After that, and we're also working here at the moment, Taraji Yampi up in the Kimberley. Last year, we made a massive sulfide discovery up here of high-grade copper, cobalt, silver, and gold. It's an area that's been off limits since 1978. It's a major listing asset of Dreadnought. This has been a long-time dream of a lot of our founders. You're always looking for the overnight success, like the companies I mentioned earlier, and usually it takes a few years to become an overnight success. And Taraji Yampi is certainly one that's been waiting in the wings for quite some time. Last year, we made that discovery at Orion. The guys were absolutely ecstatic. I'm pretty sure I sat down on the ground and started crying when the guys made that discovery. I showed up on site that day. It's pretty exciting. And then we quickly followed up and made the rest of that dry season by putting a bunch of holes into that. We've only tested it down to 150 meters vertical depth. The geophysics shows that it goes down to 500. When we mobilize up there after Mangaroon, we'll take our RC rig and 2 diamond rigs up there. The diamond rigs will be drilling into this Orion deposit at depth. We'll be able to scope that out, see if we turn that into the resource, along with Grants, which is only 2 kilometers away. And the RC rig will go in and be focusing on trying to find Orion's friend. So one of the most exciting things that we learned about the Taraji Yampi project area on the back of that discovery at Orion is that the entire area is covered by black plain soils. Like Mount Isa, you have these veins sticking out of the ground. Occasionally gets a good deposit on that, but the big prizes are sitting a bit undercover, the big Brexit pipes, the big sulfide bodies. And so we always wanted to see what's under the cover, what's under the black plain soils. And we thought that would be 30 to 40 meters thick. On the back of Orion, we hit the Gaussian on that thing at only 1 meter under the cover, and the maximum depth of cover we had was 5 meters. We were not expecting that, and that provided us with a fantastic opportunity to get up there, and creativity loves constraints, as they say. And we have just recently kicked off an auger program supported by the helicopter, which has allowed us to get up to the Taraji Yampi project during the wet season. And we can actually go around and look for that geochemical dispersion, which we identified around Orion from our drilling, so that when we get back up there with the RC rig later this year, we'll actually be going after geochemical mineralized targets, potentially tapping a Gaussian with that auger rig. There are also lithostructural targets, and actually open up this area and prove that what we believe that this thing is going to be a new camp. It's a fantastic area. There's 2,400 auger program holes there that we're planning right now. That's underway. We're about 600-800 samples into that already. That'll be running for the next few months. And when we get up there drilling with the RC rig, that auger program will still keep going. You have an area that's been off limits to exploration since 1978 and last explored by Roy Woodall in 1958. And you potentially find a way to crack that code and deploy modern geochemical exploration under thin cover and unlock an entirely new province is probably one of the most exciting things that I've ever had available to me. And my team is absolutely beside themselves on what we're going to get out of this program. So there's no guarantees in exploration ever, but there's not many opportunities to come across like this. And Alara, so we are currently wrapping up the 6,500 meter RC program at Alara. When we had projects like the Kimberley and Mangaroon, we have very seasonality plays a big role. As a junior explorer, we have a team of exploration geologists that love getting out there. We need to keep that news flow pumping. We picked up the Alara Greenstone Belt, 75 strike kilometers of greenstone off Newmont in 2019. And it's certainly been a fantastic project to have in the back pocket, if you will. Most companies, I think, would love to have a project like this as their keystone asset. And at the moment, because of Mangaroon and Taraji Yampi, this is our back pocket project. This 6,500 meter program, we identified some base metal conductors from BMS style targets at Nelson and Trafalgar. We hit massive sulfides in that first pass program and a lot of thick disseminated sulfides. Quite excited to see what comes back from that drilling. All those samples are at the lab. And what was a surprise in that drilling is that we hit a few thick pegmatites. We had Peggy Sue around the corner, which was some outcropping fertile pegmatites with high tantalum. We're quite close to the source intrusion. And the question is, which way is the vector? Where's the fractionation trend? Where's the lithium and all the other valuable minerals going to fall out? And at Nelson, which is several kilometers away from that source intrusion, we hit some thick pegmatites. They look really juicy. They're at the lab, and we'll find out if there's any lithium in them or not. Gold, Metzke's find. So we promised this resource last year. We got distracted at Mangaroon, and Paul Payne wanted a few more drill holes in the top 40 meters to have higher confidence in that resource. We've now completed that drill program. Those assays will come out. We'll put out that resource later this year. And we also put in quite a few holes into Spitfire, which we anticipated being a BIF-hosted gold target. Some of the BIF looked very enriched in iron ore. And it also was quite a bit of, well, hopefully some nice indications of what we think will be a gold in there. We also taste the iron ore with Gina Reinhardt recently taking over a bunch of ground north of Mount Bevan, which is next door to us, and Minres building haul roads right next to us and operating in the area, looking at not only the high-grade iron, but also the magnetite potential of the area. We're surrounded by companies that have a lot of interest in the iron ore. We have a lot of iron ore on our ground and looking for ways to commercialize that. We put a bit of work into that. And the pegmatites and the nickel sulfides were advancing in the background. So what does that look like for us this year? We will be looking at, for the Kimberley, this auger program is generating targets. They will define targets as we go back and infill those. RC rig gets up there. We drill those high priority targets and hopefully deliver a discovery, a friend to Orion. And at the same time, the diamond rigs will be going at Orion and Grants to convert those into preliminary resources. At Mangaroon, our targets are defined. Our heritage approvals are done in place. And we'll be commencing drilling up there in the next week. Mangaroon, the rare earth side of things, 100% owned by us. We have defined the targets. I don't like to call things discoveries until they're drilled. So we'll put the first drill holes into them, delivering those discoveries, come back straight away, infill those and deliver the resources. And Alara, we've advanced a lot of projects in the background to keep us going. So we have a very busy next 6 to 9 months ahead of us. And thank you guys very much for listening.
Thank you, Dean. So we have one session to go before afternoon tea, and those of you who have been looking at their iPads, etc., have seen that the Reserve Bank has done what? Up 0.25%, up 0.25%. So that'll be interesting. First rate rise since 2010. And we all know what happened to the last incumbent government who were defending in an election in 2007, I think it was. Didn't go particularly well. So it could make for an interesting election. Meanwhile, we have another investment little potential here. This fellow here, look at his happy little face. I'll tell you what, a month ago, Damien, the managing director of Sunshine Gold, was a very happy MD, weren't you? What was the quote? I say, the best intercept drill by Sunshine Gold at Triumph to date. Indeed. He was stoked. What's happened since then? Why are we going to invest with Sunshine? Would you please make him welcome, everyone?
Well, thanks for the very warm welcome and to Dean previously. And we have been excited by what we've been turning out of our 4 Queensland projects. This time last year, we got up and announced results from our first drilling. So we'd only been listed for about 3 or 4 months. And quite a lot's gone on in the last 12 months. So I'll give you a run through now. Currently trading at about around the 4-cent mark for a market cap of about $24 million. As per the previous talk, our investors have also, our directors have also tipped in a fair amount of their own coin into the venture, backing what we're doing completely. We've got an experienced board. We've been there and done it before in multiple vehicles, and we're hoping that this one is as successful as the rest. So why Sunshine? Well, we've got a large land holding in really underexplored terrain. All 4 projects are in Queensland and in significant provinces. We're leveraged to multiple high-value metals. So Sunshine Gold probably doesn't do us justice. We've also got copper, molybdenum, silver, and rare earth exposure on our books. We're well funded. We are highly active. So we've put 24 kilometres of drilling into the ground since December 2020, and the drill rig is just about to start turning again. So that number's going to go north pretty quick. Within the first 16 months of ownership or of drilling activity at Triumph, we've put down a 118,000 ounce resource, shallow open pit grades, and we've got more extensional drilling there planned in July. And we've got an emerging 15-kilometre long copper, moly, gold and silver corridor at Ravenswood West. So this time last year when we got up and spoke, Ravenswood West wasn't even in our portfolio. We've added that in April, and we've been highly active in that on that piece of ground since. We've got IP surveys. We've completed one part of an IP survey on one of these copper moly porphyries at Tetov. We've got another one happening at Gagarin, kicking off in coming weeks. And we've got a broader deep sensing survey going to commence on an exciting gold prospect at Wilbur's Hill, which actually is a kilometre from the Tetov work that we've been doing. And a bit of flavour of the month, but we've got a highly encouraging rare earth story emerging also at Ravenswood West. And mapping and sampling is ongoing, and our next results will be out in June. So the project portfolio, I speak slowly because I'm from North Queensland. Our head office is in Townsville. So we live and breathe our projects. We can be out on site at Ravenswood West in about an hour from the office. We have delivered a maiden resource at Triumph. We've done the work at Ravenswood West. We're going to talk about those two projects in detail. That's where the bulk of the activity's been. We've also got an early stage copper project in the Mount Isa Inlier, about 12 to 15 kilometres south of the Mount Gordon copper mine, and first field work has commenced there in February of all times of the year. And we've got a gold project up in the Hodgkinson. It's early stage. It's very exciting. We've flown a massive mag survey up there, and it's really refined some of the targets. Today's talk, though, we will focus on Triumph and Ravenswood West. So Triumph, we've now completed 16.5 kilometres of drilling on the project, and that's allowed us to put down a resource of 118,000 ounces at just over 2 grams. The bulk of the resource, 85%, is less than 100 metres depth. And our discovery and acquisition cost rolled together, we've done that for $24 an ounce. So it's focused in-ground activity leading to a solid resource outcome, and that's happened relatively quickly. Importantly, there's huge upside potential. So the southern corridor, the prospective southern corridor, we believe we've only drilled about 20% of that. Drill tested, and we'll be back down there extending that resource in July. So the results in isolation are quite stunning. We did have 16 metres at 8.4 grams per tonne from a prospect called Super Hans. What we're looking at here is a magnetic image. The pink shape is the intrusive body, so it's an intrusion-related system, and we've got a big fault cutting the intrusion in half. Incredibly, when you just chop and slide that back together, you can see the intrusion back in its entirety, and you can also note the line of gold workings stringing along in a coherent trend, and that trend is forming the focus of our initial activities. So we've got the southern corridor and the northern corridor because geologists aren't particularly imaginative. And we've focused on the southern corridor for starters. What you can see here is 3 discrete little resource centres, but we believe it's a network of coalescing faults and fractures that are obviously mineralised, and we have no reason to believe that this won't form a bigger system over time. We've got a great heads up on where to go next. and you can see there's blue sky all the way out to the edge of the tonalite. So the tonalite body runs up around the edge here, and we've got resource, and it's extending for at least another kilometre and a half out to the contact. Delineated already, so there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there. In the northern corridor, we've also got a small resource that was immediately able to be strung together, a limited amount of drilling required. But importantly, we've got upside through the northern corridor as well. So as we move east on the Bald Hill resource, you can see there's 2 metres at just under 15 grams, and there's 3 holes that tag mineralisation in that area and no further drilling done. We can also move up to Advance, which is the pink shaped to the north, and we can see that from a limited amount of drilling, there's some highly encouraging results, and we will be doing some more work there as well. At Ravenswood West, we picked up just over 400 square kilometres of tenure, immediately adjacent the Ravenswood Gold Mine. We're in a district, a really well-endowed district that's produced over 20 million ounces over the course of its 130-year life. They're spending a bomb recommissioning the Ravenswood Gold Mine, where I actually spent some time as an early career geologist. The area, though, is not just prospective for gold. It's actually highly prospective for these porphyry copper, gold, silver moly systems, orogenic and intrusion-related gold, and interestingly, rare earths. We've now tracked a trend, I guess, a 15-kilometre long corridor with multiple copper porphyry targets along it. We've done work on the northwesternmost prospect at Titov because it's stuck its head out of the ground, and you could see a big system at surface. It was the cover photo on the talk. It was last explored in 1969, and we've actually been able to locate some of the drill core and pull that out and relog it, stored in a Brisbane core library. A lot of this tenure hasn't been explored systematically since that period. So Titov itself, this slide has been shown with 3 or 4 elements of grades of 3 or 4 elements displayed. But what we can now show is a copper equivalent number, given a recoverable copper equivalent number from MET test work that's just been completed. We've now defined the system over 350 metres of strike to depths of about 350 metres, and it's consistently around that 100 metres of thickness. Importantly, we drilled a deep diamond hole, and the diamond hole confirmed the system was still alive and kicking at depth, but it also tagged mineralisation near the collar in a prospect we've called Titov South. And as we move to the east on this system, we've got an emerging gold in soil anomaly out to the east, and we are starting to see gold entering this system. The Titov MET test work, everyone loves these shiny bubbles, and what it does show us is that we can produce a really nice moly con. We recover the copper pretty well, and preliminary work with some cleaner float test work is producing con up to about 57% moly, and there's further work to do on the copper. Importantly, we are starting to see some localised high-grade zones within this broader porphyry system. So we're seeing a footwall zone to mineralisation that's now going 17 metres at 1.36, straight into 17 at 1.16, and the historic diamond hole we pulled out, we're only able to select sample select intervals within that footwall high-grade zone. But even assuming 0 grade for the dilutive parts, it would still be running 18 metres at 1.38. We will be drilling through that area with this next round of drilling, which will kick off in about 2 weeks' time. But the Titov prospect isn't just Titov itself. So we are seeing some more chargeability anomaly within an IP survey we've just completed. So like I said, hole 1, diamond hole 1 was collared down here to target T-top depths, and it's hit mineralisation in the collar. We've also got mapped breccias that were taken from T-top North, and those breccias are running about 4% copper, but up to 418 grams silver. So they're going to form part of the focus of the next round of drilling. The rare earth story. So this image shows potassium radiometrics. It picks out a quite unique intrusion, regionally unique. Gold in stream sediments collected by previous owners is grading up to 2.28% total rare earths. And importantly, we are seeing some of these streams producing gold in stream seds up to 6.3 grams per tonne gold, with some rare earths associated with that. It does have a high neodymium, praseodymium content, where the value proposition actually lies in these rare earths. And we've been given some money by a Queensland Collaborative Exploration Grant to cover the costs of the soil assays. You can see the edge of the Pluton in the soils. That cutoff is 400 ppm total rare earths. So there is a distinct boundary there. And we've just completed some mapping and sampling at 2 prospects outside, other copper moly porphyries called the Bank and Turkey Gully, and results will be announced from those shortly too. So Ravenswood West, we're talking about a large scale systems that we're exploring for here. T-top, as I've discussed, is now defined over 350 metres of strike to great depths and has a relatively consistent thickness. We've got copper grades typically around the 0.4% and moly grades about 0.1%, and now able to use that as an equivalent value. And Keynes to the south, we've put a handful of holes down there. It's narrower, but we're getting higher grade copper up to 4%, gold up to 6 grams per tonne. So the assertion that we are going to be seeing gold in these systems is certainly alive and kicking from that work. And Elphinston Creek, it is early days, but it's a highly encouraging rare earth story emerging there. We've got plenty of news flow coming up. I urge you to come past the booth and have a chat to us. We are down at booth 89 and down towards the coffee machine, just around the corner from the Dreadnought guys. So do come past and have a chat. We are Queensland based proudly. We've got some fantastic ground. We are based in North Queensland. We're well funded and we're highly active and with leverage to some pretty interesting minerals at the moment. Come past and have a chat to us at booth 89. Thanks.
Damien, please, thank you very much. Booth number 9, at least you know where you live. That's a very, very good thing. I suggest you race out there and get into that coffee line, everyone, very, very quickly. I'll see you back in half an hour.